So they're definitely in the top tier of the Greek city-states. But he claims leadership of the Theban hegemony, and he plays a crucial role, actually, like you mentioned, ending the Spartan dominance in Greece. So, I mean, it's kind of a weakened Spartan by this point. And he initially rose to prominence in the early 4th century BCE. He was instrumental in the formation of key alliances that would strengthen Thebans, against their rivals. And the Thebans had a lot of rivals. The Thebans were kind of the most hated of the states, I'd say, in Greece.
That's
Uh,
true.
yeah. His most significant achievement came at the Battle of Leuctra in 371 BCE, where he devised a new tactical formation, an oblique phalanx, allowing the Thebans to decisively defeat the Spartans and liberate Messenia. This victory shifted the balance of power in Greece, and it established the Thebans as, a major player. He would he would,
I'll just add a little bit.
yeah.
That was pretty good before I get into the Battle of Lectura because the tactics are going to be influential there.
Mhm.
But he was also pretty good. He launched four invasions of the Peloponnesian
Yeah.
Peninsula. And I think one of the most interesting things was he is also a pretty good orator.
Hmm.
So in 370 BC, 369 BC, after the first invasion of the Peloponnese, he, you know, he needed to be and wanted several of him and several of the Boeotarchs to remain in power after their term to continue and prosecute the campaign effectively.
Yeah.
So Boeotarch is just the Theban word for general.
Oh, yeah, there you
So
go.
it's just kind of like you can think of it as a legate in Roman terms or strategos in the Athenian terms.
Hmm.
And upon his return after the successful prosecution of the invasion, he was not greeted as a hero, but his political enemies put a trial. Like, you're breaking the law. Screw you. Now, according to Cornelius Nepos in his defense, he requests that if he's to be executed, his inscription regarding the verdict should read, he was punished by the Thebans with death because he obliged them to overthrow the Lacedaemonians at Lectura, whom, before he was general, none of the Boeotians durst look upon in the field, and because he not only by one battle rescued Thebes from destruction, but also secured liberty for all Greece and brought the power of both people to such a condition that the Thebans attacked Sparta and the Lacedaemonians were content if they could save their lives. Nor did he cease to prosecute the war till after seeing Messana, he shut up Sparta with a close siege. After this, it was said the jury just broke out in laughter, and yeah, he considered he would be prosecuting several more invasions of the Peloponnese. It really worked out in his favor. Now, this is a battle that actually shatters the Spartan mirage because everyone has this thing. The Spartans are the ultimate super soldiers. They are fearless. And when they died because they were grossly outnumbered, like 10,000 to one and everything, right? But Lectura is definite proof that the Spartans were not the supreme soldiers that they are made out to be. They are good, but they're not drastically better than any Athenian or Theban or Corinthian or Argos hoplite. Right? Because since all the men had to provide for their own equipment in this time, you got to be pretty rich and fit, anyways, in that ancient world to even be able to afford and equip such armor. A lot of these men spent time in the gymnasiums and everything in all acropolises across the country. So to me, they're not supremely better soldiers, but they do have a much more stricter code of honor and conduct, and that does breed into better discipline. But at the Battle of Lectura, the Spartans engaged with an army of around 10,000 infantry and 1,000 cavalry, whereas the Theban and their allied forces numbered around 8,000, 7,500 to 8,000 men. Now, the battle opened with these mercenary peltists of Sparta attacking and driving the Boeotian camp followers and others who were reluctant to fight. Now, Xenophon, the key source, he says were trying to the camp followers of the Boeotians, that is the Thebans, were trying to leave the field as they did not intend to fight. The Spartan action drove them back into the Theban battle line, which actually reinforced the Theban line because now they have nowhere to go. Now, there followed a cavalry engagements which the Thebans drove them off the field. Initially, the Spartan infantry was sent into disarray when the retreating cavalry disrupted the attempt to outflank the Theban left. Right? How many times you've seen, disarrayed cavalry just marching straight through advancing infantry? And at this point, the Theban left hit the Spartan right with the sacred band. It's a unit I will get into. And and this is the decisive engagement between the Theban and Spartan infantry. Now, the normal practice of the Spartans and most Greeks was to establish the phalanx, 8 to 12 men deep, just a solid block of infantry with your more nimble units and cavalry generally on your flanks to protect them. Because as we discussed in our Roman episode, when the Romans use the phalanx, they still suffer the same weakness. You get into the flanks or rear of the phalanx, you're toast. Now, this was supposed to be now 8 to 12 ranks deep was considered the best balance between the depth, that is the push, the forward power, the forward momentum. The more men you have, the deeper your ranks, the more power you get to push forward, and width, right? You don't want to give the enemy any chance of outflanking you. Now, the infantry would be advancing together, so you have to maintain the line cohesion. This is difficult even in open, flat terrain and almost impossible if there's even some amount of broken ground. Now, because of the kind of drift that would happen to the right, so the Greek commanders traditionally put their best and experienced and deadliest troops in this. So this was like how the place of honors, started being born. Whereas the left troops, the left wing, absolute left, had the weakest and most ill-equipped troops. Therefore, in the Spartan battle plans, their elite forces were on the right, but the Thebans, knowing that the Spartans are going to deploy in traditional formation, they placed their best units, including the sacred band, on their right to oppose the Spartans. Now, what Epaminondas changed was he massed his cavalry and infantry together, which is not unheard of. They're side by side. And this wing is 50 men deep.
Jeez.
I think I have an image. I think you could see this. So you can see the block is pretty obvious that this is the depth of the Theban army.
Mm-hmm.
And then he sent this against the Spartan right. And his shallow and weaker center and right wings were drawn up so that they were progress. So he's fighting the best of the Spartans head up. But to counter this, he's obviously thrown in numbers. And these guys are just basically going to be pinning down the enemy. All right. And they would move forward in an echelon formation. Right. That is why, as you mentioned, it is the staggered line. The Theban center right were held back and screened by skirmishers. And this mass of infantry just smashed through the Spartan right wing. Right. And they cannot sustain. The 12-man deep formation can't sustain against a 50-man deep formation. And it was destroyed. And the Spartans were thrown back with heavy losses with about 1,000 men, including 400 full Spartan citizen soldiers, including the king of Sparta, one of the kings. Cleombrotus was killed. Now, this is what, sent the rest of the Spartan forces and their allies into a panic, and the Thebans took the day. And it's estimated that the Theban and their allies lost maybe 200, 300 men, whereas the Spartan and their allied losses is including their king and many citizen soldiers, over almost 4,000 men. This is almost on an army of 12,000. So now, why is this important? Because when he was a young man, King Philip of Macedon was a hostage/guest of Thebes. He studied under Epaminondas. Sorry, I know I've butchered the name horribly, but it is studying under him and learning from him. Philip got the core, that spark, which he would use when he would take over Macedonia to reform the kingdom and make it that eventual juggernaut that we all know. So it was after this battle that Thebes was the dominant power in Greece. But due to the oligarchy and instability of the Greek political climate, he was not really able to allow Thebes to really fully exploit its gains. It's the same way as after the Second Peloponnesian War, we had the Spartan general Lysander, who was key in defeating Athens, unable to really enforce his full, utter humiliation and dominance of Athens, which many Spartan elites, including the kings and other generals, did not want.